Hey all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're reviewing infinitynikki version 1.3. This will be a very short review as I only really want to touch on what has changed and what hasn't changed, as well as the things I want to be implemented in the future. I didn't review the previous update as there wasn't enough content to cover. I will also be making new rules for my gacha reviews, which we'll be speaking about at the end of this video. But without further delay, let's get into the review. As I said in my previous review, I'm not too much of a fan of the storytelling in infinitynikki. It's not bad though, if anything it keeps you entertained, and when it needs to, it does its job, but it's really just not my thing. My thoughts on the release's story were somewhat positive. I enjoyed certain parts more than others, but found a majority of the story forgettable except for the big climax of each chapter, and honestly that still remains the same. I'm paying attention throughout and I wasn't bored with the story, but honestly, it's pretty forgettable and really doesn't make me want more. It's okay, and that's honestly about it. But to be honest, the story does seem to be heading in a better direction, and honestly the lore itself is brilliant. It's just the overall presentation that's not the best. The cutscenes, however, are absolutely stunning and memorable. These were the moments that kept me engaged in the story, as well as moments of conflict. The story is definitely not the best aspect in this update, and that's completely fine, especially because the gameplay is so fun in this update. It also makes up for it with the addition of new content and events. I really enjoyed the Chinese New Year event story, however, and especially loved the cutscene towards the end. But let's move on to the actual gameplay itself, and we'll speak more about this later. The two main things I really loved in my previous review were the platforming and the combat. And those two aspects are really starting to shine, especially in this update, but that doesn't mean things are perfect, as I do have a few minor complaints. The first being that we have some of these new cool enemies to beat, with different attack patterns and different designs, which was something I was asking for in my previous review. I wanted more diverse combat with different attack patterns, making it a bit trickier. However, there's still a lack of combat, as you are barely encountering these new enemies. You still have a lot of basic enemies all around you, but the new enemies are very hard to come by, except for in story areas, caves, and as well as near chests. And my final complaint about the combat is there's still no combat mode, like an endgame mode or an event. The only thing that we have close to that is dailies, which you can now skip, which kind of makes that gameplay kind of pointless, as that's the only time you really experience combat daily. Though I'm not complaining, since this makes the game take less time to do dailies, which also stops that grind I was talking about in my previous review and complained about. Now moving on to the real star of this update, the exploration and platforming. In this update, we gain access to an entirely new permanent area, the Firework Isles. And man, I really enjoyed exploring this region. Not only was it fun and eye-catching, there's also a ton to do. The area also makes it easier to find win stars and dues, as it's smaller and it doesn't spread them out as much, which also fixes my main issue with the game, and that's tracking down those two resources. Though there's still no ability to specifically track them entirely, one by one, though I have heard they will be implementing a tracking feature in the future. However, these two items go by different names in this region, which is Balloon Whims and Dues of Fireworks to fit the region, which is kinda cool, and I like this little adjustment. It's almost like how in Genshin, each of the Oculuses are by different names per different region. The new area is also stunning, especially at night, and it's packed with culture and festivities. There's a new way of transport too, and even an additional extension to this area, which takes place in the sky. I don't really want to speak too much about it though, as overall the area itself uses similar environments from the original map, like the same grass textures, trees, etc., just different landscapes and a different layout. There's also an insane amount of new events currently ongoing, and all of these gives you a plentiful amount of rewards, including currency and even multiple free outfits, which was something I was surprised by. This update is very rewarding, and even the outfits have improved. I didn't really like the outfits in the previous versions. I thought the colors were very, a bit too similar, and the outfits weren't very, there weren't a variety of different outfits that you can get in the gacha pool, but that has changed in this update, thankfully, and I'm all for it. Now let's finally speak about the platforming. The part I love the most about this game is the platforming, and I honestly adore exploring caves and jumping from place to place, especially during those mission areas like in the train level and the sewers. It's something I wish that they would use more in this game, which is unfortunate because if you know with the daily grinding thing, you can also skip out on the platforming on that as well, which kind of makes that pointless as you don't really experience it outside of dungeons and stuff like that. And it really does shine in this update though, not so much in the interiors, but the quest areas and around the new map itself, especially the new hot air balloon area, which is very different, and I think that's a big improvement in Step Up, having the platform mechanics take place more in the open overworld rather than just in these interiors and quest areas. That way you can experience it more. I really found it fun to jump from each balloon to another balloon to get to the next point, and watching the beautiful scenery and listening to the absolutely stunning music along the way was absolutely perfect. That's a lot of absolutely's, but honestly, I genuinely love this game, and I do think there's a lot of things that can be improved. And I did get a lot of hate on a certain platform for saying that the game was too grindy before, and it still is in places, but it has been gradually improving overall, and they've even allowed you to skip certain animations, like the grooming animation, where you groom animals, to get their fur, not that kind of grooming. Um, and you can skip the animation now, so you can go from point to point and just keep doing it. It's become a much more cozy game, and it's become a game that it promised to be to begin with. The amount of new ability outfits that we're getting every version are super fun, even if some are just reskinned versions and different uh, versions with different animations for like ability outfits. I really enjoyed the, you know, sheer effort and work they've put into making every ability outfit feel different and unique in its own way. Even all the musical ability outfits feel different because they're different instruments, and everything just feels polished and perfect. And there is some things that can be improved, but it is still the early stages, and I'm expecting in like 2.0 and stuff like that, when we get into the next big arc, the next big region, I have a feeling they're really going to step up with a few things, have more customization, like more skin color options, more eye shape options, face shape, and I really do think this game is going in a perfect direction. So let's get into the final verdict. And honestly, I do love this update, and I can't wait to see more. So let's get into the final verdict. Overall, I believe Infinity Nikki 1.2 is a massive step in the right direction. It introduces many new mechanics and even a new sub-region to explore. The New Year's event was very enjoyable, and even though the story is still not my thing, it is gradually picking up. The voice acting is stellar and the performances are great. The game is less grindy, but lacks the ability to track Wimstars and Jews still, and the lack of endgame really does leave the game feeling empty at times. The new outfits are brilliant, though I do find it unfortunate that a majority of the 5-star outfits look too similar to each other with the same colour variations, but the 4-star outfits look stunning and very different. The gacha system is still predatory, however, with duplicates not giving you enough materials to refund in order to afford a single pull from the shop, which is unfortunate because if you know in other gacha games you get a temple, if you're lucky enough to get like 4 duplicates in that temple of like a 4-star or something like that, you can get a whole entire pull refunded just from that temple. In this, though, you have to get a lot of duplicates in order to even afford a single one, and I think that is kind of silly. But let's get into the final verdict itself and get into the final score I'm giving this update. I think Infinity Nikki is a beautiful game that originally missed the mark in the first release of the game in some places, but is managing to turn things around and fix its flaws. And honestly, credit to the developers and whoever else works on the game. I can't wait to see what cozy content they have in store for us in the future. But for now, I will be giving Infinity Nikki version 1.2 an excellent 9 out of 10. The game is improving, and if things keep up, the game may even become a 10 out of 10 for me, but we'll have to see in the future. Now let's get into the thing I said at the start of the video, which is the new rules for gacha videos. Okay guys, I have decided that I'll put this in the comments instead, as it's easier to word there. But basically, the short of it is, I don't want to keep repeating the same points in each of my gacha reviews, because if you've watched some of my Woowa ones, you'll notice that a lot of my points stay the same. What I'm going to be doing in the future is I'll be skipping certain updates if they don't have enough content, if they're filler, or if I feel like there's not enough that's changed in order for me to speak about. But if there's an update, say like a .0 update that's got a new region, new characters, new story, everything, I will be speaking about that. It just depends on how much content's within that update, and if there's not enough or things haven't changed, whether it hasn't changed in a positive way or a negative way, I won't be making a review on it. However, if there's a filler patch with not enough content but things have changed negatively, I'll be making a short review on it. And if things have changed positively but there's still a lack of content in a version for me to speak about, I'll be making like a 4 to 8 minute short review for that as well. So yeah, that's how we're going to be doing our gacha reviews on this channel now. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Hopefully in our next review we'll be pacing it out much better than this one, because I struggled with that.